Well, we want to welcome everyone out today. This is a wonderful opportunity to learn a little bit more about how Fitness Project is employing a purpose-driven model and what they're doing to make that happen. So I'm excited to have Brian Murphy with us today. He is the CEO and founder of Fitness Project. And Brian, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
Why don't you give us a little bit of your background and your story, a little bit of your history there.
Okay. Well, I've been in the fitness space for years now. They just kind of keep flying by. Started doing some smaller fitness centers several decades ago, and then actually had the wonderful opportunity to work with Gold's Gym. They entered into the Austin, Texas market, where I had the pleasure of working over their 8 Austin locations when they first came in, their primary acquisition in the creation of Gold Gym Corporate. And then about a year or 2 years into that, I recognized that the entrepreneurial spirit in me had me thinking a franchise was the right path for me. And so with their blessing, I started our first franchise in the Houston, Texas market about 17 years ago or so. We expanded to 6 or 7 clubs. The 6 or 7 has something to do with hurricanes and such, so we've lost some clubs along the way. But after 17 years working with Golds, I evolved as a person. The community continued to evolve, and change began to occur. And unbeknownst to me, we ended up changing our brand in its entirety. So that's kind of how we got to this point.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for that intro. That is a great segue to what we're going to talk about today. First, we'll discuss what a purpose-driven business model or gym model is, and then we'll move into more of Fitness Project's story and some of what Brian mentioned just a minute ago. So, Brian, when you're having discussions with people either inside or outside of the industry, how do you explain to them what a purpose-driven model is?
Well, let me begin by saying that I'm no expert in this space. I don't know if it's on accident. Perhaps there's nothing really on accident, but unintentionally sort of evolved into a purpose-driven person. And I think that probably is my best answer in that I'm doing what I need to do, what a purpose-driven person will do. What I can tell you is that there's a lot of information out there that talks about the need for purpose, that people have a need for purpose. It's a defining characteristic of a human being. And that I know that about 70%, maybe more, of employees that are out there in the field today, they don't feel that. They don't feel this purpose in the workplace. And so, the need for this, the need to connect your soul with your role is what I believe that customers are looking for these days, being brands that have values that they can really identify with. And so, we're just doing it. I think that this idea of a purpose-driven business is more about getting purpose-driven people doing what's in their heart and what's best for the community. So the over-under on it is having a conscious expression of how an organization intends to evolve and transform, and making sure that we can begin to communicate this in the fitness space. But any of what I say today isn't to suggest that other folks can't do it in their brands or other brands, but we've looked to create a very obvious sort of DNA in this brand that we've created, which is Fitness Project, recognizing that we know that people have fitness in their mind and they have a need for fitness, but it's because of some kind of project. And so we've been identified as a purpose-driven gym model, but I don't think that in fact, I know we didn't set out to do this necessarily with that in mind. It is just a result or a byproduct of what we're doing.
That's great. So which this is another great segue to talk about kind of what inspired you to do this. How did you get your start down this path?
Well, there are several forces that were a part of this, and milestones along the way. Starting in the fitness business, I love the fitness space. I love fitness like everybody else. It was sets, reps, weights, look better, feel better, live longer, and all those things are important, and they will continue to be important. As things change in my personal life, and I don't really want to make this personal, but the reasons why we do those things began to change. The reasons why we want to look better changed. The reasons why I want to live longer changed. And I'm not sure how granular you want me to really get in this moment, but shall I now kind of walk you through the evolution of how we got to this brand? Is that where you'd like me to take this?
Yeah, Brian, I think, if you're okay going that direction, I think it'd be very meaningful for those listening in.
So I'll try to keep it as clean and lean as possible, because I don't want to get caught up too much in the weeds of this. But it was as I said, just a series of events that I didn't see coming. I should first say, being in the fitness space for as long as I was, really loving what I do, I think I began to fell out of love with it. Selling key cards and trying to hit budgets and finding ways to maximize profitability, fighting the competition. I think I began to fall out of love with that as I was, building my family, and most notably, several years ago, where my wife was encouraging we take a trip to go work with people less fortunate than ourselves. It happened to be a mission trip in Guatemala. And so we took a trip. I pretended to be okay with it inwardly. I thought it was a ridiculous idea, because we have 3 children. We've got 6 clubs. We have so much to do, and we're doing so much good in our community already. Why go there? But we did. And the short of what happened during that time is I had the opportunity to actually live in an orphanage with 500 children who they needed 3 things for happiness, and that was food, love, and safety. And after spending my time there with all these kids, I thought, I think I've lost my way. I think I've lost my way. And as we returned back here to the States, that turned into a series of more trips. Turned into us actually purchasing a home in that particular area and taking people there, building a fitness curriculum actually in this orphanage, and finding such joy with using or utilizing our skill set in ways that are just, it's not really about making money, it's about making change in people's lives and finding a new inspiration for something that was in front of me the entire time. But being isolated in this space and just doing this one thing, that being fitness for people and not profit, it recalibrated me. And so as we came back here to the United States, got back in our business, I just kind of felt it's sort of blah. It's like I'm not enthusiastic the way I once was. And so I began to contemplate, how can we change that? And as this is going on, and my wife and I are, again, her great idea to start doing some foster work, we end up through the process adopting a child, Mateo. Had him since he was 5 days old. And again, yet another sort of kick in the butt, if I can say that, on maybe there's something more that we can do in our fitness space or fitness business, and putting people first. We're putting our business first. And so, so we started this fitness project, and recognizing, of course, that, as I've said before, we know that people come to our clubs because there's something fitness related, and it's a project. And it's probably something that happened outside of the club, that they come to the club to pursue that project. We've also coined our company slogan, which is to work out on purpose. We know that people have a purpose for working out. We know that if people scroll through the phone in this moment and were asked to identify 2 images of people that would move them to be a better version of themselves, or to be just better, harder working, willing to do things that they wouldn't otherwise do. Two images, in most cases, those images are not them. It's somebody else. And so it really is just like this path that we follow, that if we could identify what a person's fitness project is and get behind it and motivate and hold them accountable to it, the byproduct of that is they're going to pursue or be in pursuit of their fitness journey for reasons maybe bigger than themselves. And if it is themselves, that's okay too. That is, in fact, their fitness project. But at the end of the day, our objective is to find out what's their project, hold them accountable to it, and simultaneously, we have begun to work with projects in our actual community, projects that folks are inspired to work with and support. And as we know here in the Houston market, these hurricanes that keep hitting us, and it's horrible. Lives lost and property gone forever. Why does it take a hurricane to help somebody? You know, there's things that are happening all the time in our community. And so if we're really caring about people's fitness project, the project really is outside of the club. You know, so we're looking to not just support members on their fitness journey in the club, but the things that move them to pursue that fitness journey outside of the club.
That's great. That's great. Thanks, Brian. That's a wonderful summary. I like, as you and I were talking the other day, you know, we talked about a little bit of how this change occurred and, you know, what pushed you to do that. And we'll get to that here a little bit later. But when you mention the projects, what projects are you currently focused on, perhaps in some of the communities that you're in?
Well, when we started the process and I should note this because it's an important part of the story. I'm sitting in a hot tub with my daughter, and I'm sharing with her this vision. Her name's Kylie, of, you know, describing this idea of when we get prospective members who are looking for the courage to move forward, to get involved in fitness or stay involved in fitness, and realizing that people are motivated to do things for themselves, but also for others. I don't know a lot of people that buy themselves Christmas presents, you know, more so than others, you know. I share with her this idea of, as we're touring through our facilities, we would stop at this wall. And on this wall, we would have a display of different things we're doing in this community that we believe people will get behind, whether it's the Wounded Warrior Project, or whether it's working with autistic children, or whether it's working with, you know, depression or addiction. I mean, there's so many things that are going out there. We know that people on a treadmill, they're not there in most cases because they want to do their first marathon. They're working on something. And so as we tour people around, as I'm telling Kylie, and we get to this display, we would ask people to consider making a discrete contribution to these things that we're supporting in our community. And we will celebrate that by not charging you a bunch of enrollment fees to get involved in the club. We'll forego that if you consider making today that you start helping yourself, but also helping the community that we live in, the community our kids go to school in, that we work in. And so it's a call to action without being pushy or salesy. And so as I describe this to a 10-year-old girl, she says, "Dad, you should call it your project wall." And as you would see as you walk to our clubs, that's what it is. It's a project wall displayed prominently in our clubs, where we actually share information about the various projects we're working with. Now, specific to your question, when we started this, I'm thinking we're gonna whatever someone wants to, whatever motivates somebody, that's what we're gonna ask them to make a contribution to. Whatever drives you, whatever brought you here in the first place, we want you to find something that you would like to make a contribution to, and then moving forward, every time, for example, you work out with your trainer, we're going to put $1 towards that project. Well, this was the entrepreneurial spirit in me, and then my boss, otherwise known as my wife, says, cool idea. It's kind of a lot, and we need to really kind of hone this in and be a little bit more organized, a little bit more thoughtful. And so we landed on a couple of initiatives that we rolled out to begin with. Those initiatives specifically for us, and I know the question is going to be, you know, how do you pick them? And maybe I'll kind of go to that for a moment. I asked people in the community, people that serve in the community, how would you do this? We understood that there's a chance that we could step on toes, perhaps create some aggravation, or whatever the case may be, if we don't pick the right ones, or we leave some out, or we pick ones that, folks don't identify with. We understand that. We understand that if we were to open up a Mexican restaurant, people that want Italian food may not come. We can't be everything, but we're going to do something good. We're going to do something valuable. We're going to do our best to pick initiatives that we believe the majority of people can identify with, support, or at least not have something against. And so for us, those are CASA, and CASA stands for a court-appointed special advocate. These are folks that safeguard children's best interest. And I can tell you a little data dumping that there's 11,000 volunteers that are supporting 30,000 children over 219 countries around the world, looking out for kids that can't look out for themselves. These are kids that will go to school with our kids. These are kids that we can make an impact with by supporting CASA in various ways and just creating an awareness about it. The other one is Habitat for Humanity. And a lot of folks have heard about it. We felt like it made sense for us to pick something maybe more localized, in this case, CASA for Texas. CASA's elsewhere, though. But Habitat for Humanity, they're doing great things. I probably don't need to say a lot about it, but I will say that their general mission is to help families build strength and stability through shelter and building hope, building homes and building hope for our vets and for others. And so this is where we started. Where we end up, I'd like to expand that. I'd like to have on our project wall a library of various things that folks that move them, that they would do this. And I also want to add something incredibly important here. The folks that I've shared this with, oftentimes, most times, are really getting caught up in, you're raising money for these initiatives, and that's true. But to be clear, that isn't necessarily the goal. The origin of all this is what we're all doing in the fitness space. And what's that? Helping people achieve their individual potential through exercise. How do we do that? We have to find ways that motivate them to do that. What would you do for your loved ones that you wouldn't do for yourself? I can tell you, for me, I quit dipping 22 years ago, June 15th at 3 a.m. once I got engaged. Didn't have the strength and willpower to do it for myself, but I did for others. The idea here is raising money for these fantastic initiatives in our community is a byproduct of finding ways to motivate people to do something that they need to be doing, but they're not. You go to most clubs and you ask the guests how long you've been thinking about doing this, and the answer is always forever, 3 months, 6 months. Well, if you're that motivated to be doing it, why aren't you? But if we can find inspiration for them to do this, yes, Habitat for Humanity benefits from this and all the folks that are attached to it. Yes, CASA benefits, but so does, Mrs. Jones' child, who has a chance to have the healthiest parent we can provide by finding ways to really motivate them. So I hope I answered the question. I didn't mean to get off track.
No, that's great. That's perfect. I love the detail. I love the story as well, because I think that's very poignant, very telling of not only the journey that you're on, but the reason why you've chosen what you have. That's a powerful motivator. I love that. Okay. So you and I talked about this the other day, and perhaps this question isn't the best one. It's actually the reverse of this. So, which is to say, you changed first, and then that initiated the change with the business and many other facets, and you've touched on that. But why don't you maybe take a minute here and dive into that a little bit deeper for us?
And is the question how this changed me?
How this changed you, and then in how that pushed you to make the changes elsewhere with the business and to become more purpose-driven?
Well, obviously some of what I've shared sort of speaks to this in some form or fashion. It's sometimes hard to articulate this part of it because it's now like it's in my DNA. I would say this. When we began to foster this child, Mateo, and 2 months into that process, CPS shows up and tells my wife and I that if we don't identify ourselves as adoptive parents, we're going to have to take the baby and put them, wherever in the system. And I said to her, okay, we're going to go save the world in Guatemala, but there's a baby in our house that nobody in the world knows his name, is concerned about, curious about. We're going to let them take that. I feel like it makes me a liar that we do nothing. And in that way, with our business, we act as if we care about people. We act as if they're greater good and the best version of themselves. We really care about you when you're in our club, when you're here, paying your dues, making an investment, from a pro shopper. We really care about you until you leave. And then we'll care about the next person that walks in behind you. It makes me feel like a liar that we're not really committing and going all in on these purpose-driven concepts, on holding ourselves accountable to what is now the greatest inspiration to me, which is really looking for change, but meaningful change, big change. Change, as I have read in the past, is something that has to be enough to be identifiable. So changing our name and our paint color, that's not change. Changing our mission statement, that's not change. Changing our uniforms, it isn't change at all. Change has to be great enough to where folks can really identify the change. Otherwise, it's a lie. So you change the temperature in your house, you don't go up a degree because you can't feel the change. It's got to be like 2 or 3 degrees, or as you're going down the road or watching the television, you don't go up like 1 volume, you go up in chunks of 5. It's got to be meaningful change. Scent, the same, real change. And so this has changed my perspective of what our obligation is to the people. And I want to be held accountable to it. We're holding our team accountable to it. As I shared with you before, we had some shoppers come through our club, secret shoppers, and ask the question, what's changed as they're going through our facility? Because this is a new brand. We launched this brand, although we've been preparing it in our mind and such for years. And during the shop, when we had a team member in the front say, well, nothing's changed, it's the same, it's just a different name, I recognize that we have work to do. Now, usually we're doing a great job, but we haven't got there yet. We have so much work to do to where the people which we employ really understand the obligation we have to communicate change. And so I don't know, I feel like I'm kind of off the rails yet again, but I see an obligation to do something good in our club, but also outside of our club. And when we arrive to that and we're really doing the job that we should be doing, we'll be rewarded in some form or fashion. And I'm not even looking for reward. The pleasure and opportunity just to serve the people is in and of itself a reward. But I just don't want to be a liar the way I felt I would have been had I not responded to a circumstance where we had a chance to change the life of one child in our clubs, in other folks' clubs. We can change the lives of many children by helping their parents, their guardians get started, or future parents get started, or husbands or wives, or brothers or sisters, sons and daughters. So I hope you found the answer you're looking for somewhere inside of that soapbox.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, I think there's a lot there, right? Like part of it has to do with sometimes as entrepreneurs or business folks, we want to go out and change the world or save the world, when in reality, the greatest influence we have is on a more local or individual level.
Let me add one.
Go ahead.
I apologize, Ryan. I want
no, you're good.
Maybe just add a book into that. And, yeah, listen, the world's changing. The world is changing. And so we need to have a response to that change and improve it. And so instead of pouring dollars into, maybe a big box franchise fees, which those are good things, or other stuff, we saw the opportunity to change along with the world and take those resources and put them back in our community and really let our actions speak to the fact that we are changed. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's great. I think that's a great way to summarize it. I think, as circumstances change, we have to adapt and grow ourselves. And certainly as part of that, our families and our communities and our businesses, without a doubt. So Brian, you've mentioned this kind of throughout, but talk to me maybe a little bit about some specific benefits. Of course, this is a process and a journey, and you continue on that today, but what are some perhaps other things that you're seeing that weren't anticipated initially, or that you're pleased with the progress at this point?
The culture, the staff, as we move to this new brand, they are just energized. I mean, they are absolutely going just nuts for this new concept. And I should highlight that what we're doing is so incredibly authentic. It wasn't, as I said in the beginning, how can we be different? It's we are different, and let's demonstrate that, through our actions. And so the staff is probably the biggest change. I will tell you, there's no doubt in my mind, and I've had the pleasure of, as I've been doing my clubs for many years now, I didn't lose a general manager for the first 10 years starting these clubs. I think that the excitement of coming, first to market or being last to a market with a cool, hip brand, that was a lot. But now we've chosen to forego the big brand and put on our doors, on our buildings, this thing that we're going to be, a fitness project, your fitness project. You are the project. And as we communicate that, starting with our team, which on the back of everybody's shirt says, work out on purpose. Above the group exercise stage, it says, work out on purpose. And as the staff are chanting, hey, Ryan, what's your purpose before class? There's a sense of accountability here to not only our members, but our employees. And I believe that they really feel like they're change agents. Last night, it was 9:00 last night, and I had a lady who is the chairman of a marathon club here in the Woodlands, Texas. Who anyone knows this area? It's a kind of a hot spot for triathlons, but also a major marathon. Just left another club that she'd been with for over a decade. When she learned about what we're doing, why we're doing it, she was at our club last night filling out new hire paperwork at 9:00 at night with her child by her side. So excited about what we're doing. So excited about the working with CASA and others. My lender called me yesterday and said, "Did you know that I'm on the board of CASA?" I had no idea. The response to us doing this has been unlike anything that has ever happened in the past. All the years of me being behind this big brand, never did my landlords tell me how impressed they were with their brand, but they're doing it today. And they're not doing it because it's a cool look or it's a cool name. It's because we're sharing with them what's behind that brand. So the benefits, the culture. It's a culture of accountability, but it's also conducive to long-term employment. This is something that's different. And as I mentioned before, and I'll just touch on it again, we know that you need to connect your soul with your role, and that the future customer wants companies and wants brands that value things that they can identify with. It wasn't the intention of it, but we've gone from enrolling X number of people today times 30 to 50%, maybe 100% more than we were a few short months ago under a different brand. folks are curious about what we're doing, but it starts with the staff. It starts with the authenticity. The culture is different. It started with us. We're different. We're just putting ourselves out there.
That's great. I love it. I love it. I love the mantra soul with your connecting your soul with your role. I agree with you. I think that is one of the changes that we're seeing in the world. People want to rally behind a cause. We see it every day.
Sure.
And
Sure.
you're giving them a local way to do that through fitness. Very inspiring.
Yep.
And you touched on this just a few minutes ago in conjunction with the last one, so I think we'll skip past this one. But if you were to give someone advice, maybe within the fitness space specifically, and I see this perhaps as someone modifying their existing model to incorporate some purpose-driven programs, what type of advice or counsel would you give them?
Well, this isn't going to sound very polished. So, well, I'm going to answer the question the way that I feel is most accurate, and that is, don't be a liar. If this is something that an organization or an individual feels is right, then you gotta get it right. Not be perfect. And I love the saying, you don't have to be great to get started, but you got to start, to be great. And so I launched this without having perfected every aspect of it. I mean, there's so much more for us to do. I think I mentioned to you on a previous call that we will be launching a line of water in our clubs, which is labeled Hydrate Hope. Using that as another resource to do good things. Obviously, our retail initiative, proceeds from that will be going towards various initiatives in the club. So there's a lot of work that happened, preparatory work prior to doing this regarding a new app and, of course, a website, and seeking to understand how things like how does the money flow. And I'll just put a little note out there, and I think a big one for us is, it's important for us to find ways that this could be scalable, sustainable, replicable, safe. And so we don't touch any of the contributions that come to the club. We use a product called DonorBox, which is really it's like a hands-off solution to maintain and keep revenue off of our books, kind of like an offsite agency, and they set up direct payments, direct accounts for the various organizations. And we can set up as many of these as we want, in as many different clubs as we want. So we began with looking for a way to, again, we can really scale this up. I believe wholeheartedly that Fitness Project will become something that other folks maybe want to do on their own. And we'd love to talk to them. We want to really work on our community, but also the world. And the Fitness Project is a landing place for folks to consider doing that. We'd love to have that conversation. So we're a little bit ahead maybe of some others where we've begun this, but the short answer is, get your head around how the money would flow. For us, again, we didn't want to write checks per se, and we didn't want to have that liability sort of lingering over someone like me who's a gym guy. I sell gym memberships for a living. But so I would say, don't be a liar. Find the solutions in advance of realizing that you've got challenges and no solution for those challenges. Talk to your landlords and your lenders. We don't own our properties, and so early on in the process, I began to look at my leases and be sure that we had the authority to change. And guess what? We didn't. It took sitting down with each of my landlords and really selling them on this brand. I would tell you they're all very happy with the decision to let us move forward. Talk to my lender about it. Share with them, the financial upside to getting away for us, the franchise fees, and doing something different with that, but also the flexibility to, if we see an opportunity to put a site, we can put a site. And then lastly, start. By coincidence, my management company is called Start, because I actually, years ago, when I thought someday I'm going to do my own brand, I'm gonna call it start. What a play on words to start this and start that, and but I forwent that for something that's a much better brand, which is obviously Fitness Project. So start would be my last best recommendation.
That's great. Wonderful advice. Thank you, Brian. I love the concept of don't be a liar or be authentic. I think is something that you mentioned earlier. That is, I think it connects back to the mantra of connecting your soul with your role. When we're authentic, we can genuinely do that and help others in their purpose, in their projects. Brian, I appreciate your time today. This has been most inspiring. It's been great. I encourage those of you watching today to reach out to Brian with more questions, or even go and check out their site, fitnessproject.us, and learn some more about what they're doing. This has been a wonderful time, Brian. I thank you for that.
Well, Ryan, thank you to you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to share this with you and others.
This has been great. Here to close and wrap up, I just want to highlight briefly some of what Paramount Acceptance does, the company that I work for. We are a software, billing, and customer service company within the fitness industry. And we like to help our clients be excellent and help take things off of their plate so they can focus on things like Brian does. And our software is a one-stop software for all of the needs that any fitness center may need. And we encourage you to reach out if you have any questions about that as well. We again thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to spend some time with Brian and understand more about Fitness Project and what he's doing great in his communities. And we're grateful also to Club Solutions for this wonderful event that they put on. Thanks everyone for joining us. We appreciate your time, and we hope that you found this enjoyable, inspiring, and